Hi, everybody. Good morning. Today is Saturday, August 27th, and this is your Weekend Warrior Workshop series. Thank you for joining today. In today's practice, it's going to be more workshop oriented, and we're going to be looking at a very old aspect of the asana practice, which as of recently is often forgotten in yoga classes, but that word is called Mula Bandha. It's a concept. The word Mula means root. You might be familiar with the word Mula if you're familiar with the chakra system and Muladhara chakra, which I taught a 7-week series on way back. And the word Bandha means lock, root lock. So on a more esoteric or energetic level, the reason Mula Bandha or root lock came to be is because it was said to help direct the energy of Kundalini, the energy which is responsible for our own spiritual awakening and enlightenment, which resides at the base of the spine, in other words, the root, and rises upwards through the spine as we continue in the path of higher consciousness. So that dormant Kundalini energy is said in the classical yoga tradition to require some sort of awakening. And Mula Bandha is one of the practices that helps that to occur. Now, in addition to that more esoteric aspect, Mula Bandha directly relates to the health of the pelvic floor because it's residing at the base of the spine. More specifically, the perineum. And when we practice Mula Bandha, we're asked to basically contract that place between the front and the back of the pelvis, the perineum, in a specific way during the yoga poses, but especially during more advanced practices of pranayama, which I'm not really going to go into today. But it helps to tone the muscles of the pelvic floor in addition to just developing a better awareness. So there are some people who have more relaxed pelvic floors or weaker pelvic floors, and there are equally as many people who have issues with holding a lot of tension in the pelvic floor. And Mula Bandha, I really feel, can address both of those situations, because if we learn how to strengthen and tone a muscle at the same time, we are also learning how to relax that muscle when we need to. So we're going to be looking in a nice slow way. This is a very specific practice. It takes time and patience to learn. How can we develop strength and tone and also the ability to relax the pelvic floor and by extension, its energetic component, Mula Bandha, in a few different yoga poses today. And if we have time, perhaps some breathing exercises. Now, one more side note is Mula Bandha is one of 3 locks in the body. So if Mula is the root, Uddiyana Bandha is it's called upward flying lock, and that basically belongs to the diaphragm. That's its location. And then Jalandhara Bandha is in the throat. Now, when you hear me talk about the pelvis or the roots and the upward flying lock at the base of the rib cage and the throat lock, does that remind you of anything? You can unmute yourself if you have the answer. Who do we have here? Okay. The 3 focal points, right? Do you remember the 3 focal points? Aligning the pelvic bowl with the rib cage, with the throat and the ears. Remember all those practices we did?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is like the energetic counterpart to those more physical actions. All right.
Got it.
Okay. So with that being said, I think we'll start today in child's pose. I don't have my separate monitor with me today, so please, if you can't hear me or there's some sort of technical difficulty, just unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, so please take a child's pose that's comfortable for you. You might have your knees together or very wide. Your big toes are touching today. And I think let's put the arms under the forehead. So let's stack the arms under the forehead. And without doing anything specific, just start paying attention to your breath. You let your body land on your mat in this moment. Then start paying more attention to the inhale breath. And can you feel when you inhale, the breath almost dropping down towards the very base of the pelvis? If you could imagine something like a trampoline. And when you jump on the trampoline, when I should say, when you land on the trampoline and it kind of sinks downwards, can your inhale feel like that? Like the inhale is when you're landing. And you feel this widening and expanding sensation in that region. When you exhale, it's like the trampoline is coming back to its neutral resting position. Yeah. For the next minute or so, just try to be very focused and specific on that action. And use your hands for support. You can sit up tall. And bring your hands out in front of you and send your right leg straight out to the right with your toes pointing forward. Put a really small bend in the right knee. That's the leg that's extended, just a small bend. Try to deepen the arch of your lower back and lean back a little bit more until you're feeling a stretch in the upper right inner thigh all the way up into the groin area. You can touch your elbows down. And continue the same practice we did a moment ago in child's pose. Slow landing the inhalation right around the base of the pelvis. If you feel more of a stretch when you're on your hands, you could stay on your hands instead of the elbows. Now, if you're not already, go back to your fingertips. Walk your right foot in a little bit and then turn the toes out. So you're bending the right knee completely over the ankle and it looks like this. Take the back of your right wrist to the inner knee and press your knee wide. Keep your hips pointing forward. Strongly wrap your left glute down and inhale. Gently pull up on the pelvic floor from between the front and the back. Maybe you can bend into the right knee a little bit more. If you want to add in a side stretch here, you can. Pick up the left arm and take a couple big circles with the left arm from the center of the shoulder joint. And you can sit up tall. Close the right knee, and we'll send the left leg straight out to the side. The left toes are pointing forward, and you can put a very small bend in the left knee as you lean back your hips. Remember to maintain the arch in your lower back. You feel the breath migrating down to the pelvic floor region. Then you can go onto your fingers. Angle the left toes out and slide the heel in so your left knee can be bent and stacked over the top of the ankle. Press the back of your left wrist against the inner knee while the right hip presses exactly forward. So you feel this opening through the inner thigh and into the groin area, and try to feel a slight lift from the base of the pelvic floor upwards. We'll get more into that in a moment. So we're doing some introductory stretches here just to bring some awareness to this region. And maybe you could sweep the right arm up, introducing a side bend as well, crossing the left forearm over the left thigh. You can take some big circles with the arm. And reverse. Okay, then you can close the knees together. Take a few rounds of cat-cow. After your next cow pose, you can close the knees and the feet together with the toes curled under. We're going to move into a toe stretch here. You can walk your fingers back. You can keep your fingers on the floor. Sometimes people will actually sit completely on the toes. It can get very intense, so please be careful. If you have any issues with bone density, I would recommend keeping the hands on the floor so there's not too much weight on the feet. And try to send the breath into the toes, right? As low as you can go. Okay, then please shift forward. You can tap the tops of the feet on the ground. Then turn forward again, or so you're sideways on your mat. And now we're going to go into half frog pose, which it's a hard pose, okay? You're going to bring your knees really, really, really wide. Definitely make sure you have enough cushion for your knees. If you need to add blankets here, you can. The knees go wider than the hips and the toes point out to the sides at a right angle. The elbows touch down to the ground. And then you lean your hips back. Make sure that your shin bones are in one line. Your heels are on the same line as your shins. Toes are pointing out to the sides. It looks good. Now, once you're there, become aware of your breath and start sending the breath down to the base of your pelvis. We haven't actually engaged Mula Bandha yet. These are all kind of introductory poses to just help you develop an awareness of that part of your body. So just try to really feel how there's a relationship between the breath and the very base of the pelvis, the pelvic floor. Let's try to hold for about 10 more breath cycles. Okay, please take your time as you come out of this. Walking the legs closer together to a hands and knees position. And for a little counter pose, just take your hips side to side with your knees together. Okay, now let's start lying down on the back. If you have blocks, I would really recommend putting a block under each knee here in supine butterfly pose, if you have that. If you don't have a block, then go ahead and cross your legs pretzel style so your ankles can support your knees. And you can slide your hands down so the thumbs are about 2 inches below your belly button. And the index fingers are touching together, so you kind of made a triangle between the pubic bone and the belly button. When you inhale, feel the drop of the breath into the pelvic floor. You will feel that familiar rise of the belly and the pelvic region that we work on during abdominal breathing. When you exhale, feel that there's a natural contraction in that lower region. So now, along with the natural contraction that you feel towards the bottom of the exhale, and I really want you to make sure you feel that first. Like if you take a really complete exhale, at some point, there's this upward lift from the musculature. You'll feel it just above the pubic bone, moving up towards the navel like an elevator. It is familiar in sensation to if you were trying to hold in your pee. It's a familiar sensation. So once you've started feeling into the natural lift that happens at the bottom of the exhalation, I would like you on your next round of breath to assist that a little bit more, like make it happen more. It's not a pushing down and out, it's a pulling in and up. Like the elevator at the base of the pelvic floor is moving up towards behind your belly button. And you can feel that gradually increasing in sensation during the length of the exhale. Try a couple more times. Before I progress this, thumbs up if you feel what I'm describing. Okay, so if you are not feeling what I'm describing, it sometimes just takes it sometimes takes a while, okay, for just to practice this. One thing you can do is really visualize in your mind what I'm talking about. So the very base of the pelvic floor, it's called the perineum. It's between the genitals and the anus. That area of skin, the musculature there is being asked to pull upwards towards the throat. If you tried to hold in your urine, you would feel that similar sensation. There's this upward lift in the pelvic floor. It's like a suctioning up sensation. And you'll start to feel that action happening towards the bottom of an exhale. Like really try to squeeze all your breath out while pulling in and up. Try for a few more rounds of breath. Then I'll take us into the next step. I'll add that this region of the body is obviously a really delicate and sensitive place, especially for women. And it can sometimes house a lot of old memories or trauma around childbirth or anything else. So I acknowledge that if it's kind of a sensitive region for you, you don't need to feel like you need to keep forcing and trying this. You can always step back and try again later. Okay, so I'm gonna take us into the next step here. And you can always stick with step one, more of the natural breathing, just developing more of a relationship, a familiarity with that region of your body. Another thing you could do, you could actually just touch it. You could press into your perineum and feel, oh, that's what he's talking about. You could feel that. Okay. So now that we are starting to feel the contraction in that area, I will ask you to really strongly assist that contraction, like actually pull in and up when you inhale. So what that will look like is we'll take a natural inhale, start taking a natural exhale, and then keep exhaling until you start feeling that glimmer of contraction and you're out of breath. Then hold that contraction and increase it even more as you inhale. So your inhale is pulling the elevator all the way up from the base of the pelvic floor, all the way up towards your throat. Hold it all, hold the breath, hold that contraction. Then when you exhale, gradually release that tension. Let's try that again. Take a regular breath in. Perhaps feel the drop in the pelvic floor. Start to exhale, completely voiding the lungs. Feel that beginning of a contraction of the pelvic region. Then really blow all the air out through the nose. Everything starts to tighten. keep that, and when you inhale, consciously tighten more, pull the elevator up from the base of the pelvis all the way up through the navel, through the heart, through the throat. It'll feel like everything's narrowing and compacting. There's a lift right at the base of the pelvis. Hold, 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 gradually release with the exhalation. I'm going to take you through that one more time. Then I'll open it up for any questions or comments, experiences, and then we'll try this in a few other poses. Natural breath in, feel it release, the drop of the pelvic floor. Exhale. Towards the end of that exhale, you feel the beginning of that pelvic region contracting. Then when you inhale, strongly pull in and up from the floor of the pelvis all the way up. As you inhale, you'll feel the chest expand. Hold this contraction, hold the breath. Then when you exhale, gradually start to release. Then return to a few rounds of natural breathing. Okay. You can sit up for a second. If you have a question or you're confused about something, we have some time now if you want to speak up, and I'll help you before we go into the next stage.
Yes, Matt, I'm confused. This is Anne.
Hi, Anne.
Hi. When I'm inhaling and pulling the elevator all the way up, I feel like everything's tightening and my stomach is going in instead of expanding out like the belly breath would. Which way does your stomach go when you're pulling everything in and up?
You're doing it right. That's a very good question.
Okay.
So no, you're doing it right. So an abdominal or belly breath is something that happens when we're relaxed, when we're not, I feel like my camera's so dark, when we're not doing work. But you'll remember that if you consider the 3-part breath, we've learned that sometimes it's appropriate to inhale to the ribs and the chest when the abdominals are being recruited for a specific action. Sometimes that's sit-ups, sometimes it's this pelvic floor exercise. So when you try it again, you're having a correct experience. Inhale to the ribs. So no, the belly is not going to be expanding right now. This is not a belly breath moment. Does that clarify that?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And the belly breathing is something you do when you want to incite like relaxation and like a more restful response. This is work.
Okay, thank you.
So Matt, are you recruiting your glutes in this or no?
Okay, so no.
No. Okay.
But in the beginning, if it
Mhm.
helps you
Mhm.
feel that lift in the pelvic floor, yes, you can squeeze your glutes along with everything else. And then you got to learn how to release the glutes and only get to the pelvic floor.
Okay. Mhm.
Were you feeling your glutes activating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, were you feeling other things
Yeah.
inside?
Mhm.
Okay. So then your task is going to be to isolate the inside sensations.
Okay. Mhm. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. When I tighten, I feel like
Mhm.
part of my glutes and then even my inner thighs were like tightening the whole
Yeah,
bottom.
totally.
And
And
I
they're all related. So it will just take time to specify that internal lift.
Yeah, I was also arching my lower back a little bit doing that, so it was not.
Okay, yeah, I can see, yeah.
Mhm. Thanks.
How about you, MC? What's going on for you?
I had better luck and connection
Mhm.
when you told us to actually do it as
Do it.
opposed to
That's what I
having.
thought would happen.
I wasn't, when you were asking us to just breathe deep and feel it naturally, I wasn't getting that connection. But I
Yeah.
absolutely did when I made that connection myself, when I made it happen myself. So the second exercise was more productive for me.
Good. And that makes perfect sense as well.
Yeah,
And then once you start doing that, you'll probably start to notice the more subtle aspects of it.
right. When you described it as when you're trying to hold your pee, that's where that was a real aha moment for me.
Okay.
I felt that. Yeah.
So what I just took you all through could also be called Kegel exercises.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Exactly.
Yeah. But it's
Okay.
very specific. I mean, I guess you could just like do them, but I really like to coordinate them with the breath and have it be this. When I practice them, it feels like I'm doing abdominal work,
Yeah,
like crunches. You feel it right under the navel, but it's really
absolutely.
deep.
Absolutely. But I don't feel the perineum now. I can't, when you were saying you can feel
You
it, I
really
don't,
wouldn't. You wouldn't, because it's like the muscles, I guess they're technically above the perineum,
right,
but they're in,
right, right.
but it's not all the way back and it's not all the way forward.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
do like originate at the base. So
Yeah.
that's why the perineum is used as a landmark.
right. I see your point.
But the skin itself, like, I don't imagine if you were looking at this happening, I don't think you would see the perineum moving. It's the muscles like above it.
Gotcha.
So now with the time we have remaining, let's take a few standing poses and see how this can support your poses. So let's stand up. So let me clarify that what we just did was a very specific type of pelvic floor awareness and strengthening exercise. When you're asked to do Mula Bandha in more general poses, it's not you're not doing that whole process. You could, but that's not what we need. We're being asked to just start to feel like you could manually manipulate that lift of the pelvis. It doesn't matter when you're inhaling or exhaling, right? Like you could just do it right now, that lift. That's more of what we're talking about now. So we're gonna go to a wide stance, put your hands on your hips. And strongly press down through the outside edges of your feet. And then at the same time, imagine a current of energy pulling up the inner thighs into the pelvic floor, and then consciously lift the base of the pelvis at the same time. Now, I want you to find an effort level where you can hold that inwards and upwards pelvic floor contraction the whole time, even as you inhale and exhale freely. So there will be no like belly breathing here. I want you to breathe right now, like how you normally would, breathe in and out, but maintain the lift of the pelvic floor the whole time. And after this last breath cycle, release it and just chill for a sec. So you can see how when we're holding that contraction, that's Mula Bandha, that's root lock. The breath, which holds prana, moves more upwards in the ribs, and it becomes a very energizing, awakening, enlightening type of experience. Like that's the energy associated when you hold Mula Bandha. And that's why it's so emphasized in the yoga practice, because it makes energy move upwards. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's correct or functional for day-to-day life. I'm just talking about yoga proper. Now you're going to turn your right toes out and we're going to try warrior two. So just do warrior two how you normally would do it. Okay, line up your focal points, pelvis, ribs, and shoulders and ears. Straighten your leg for a moment, lower your hands, and this time we'll go into it with pelvic floor awareness. So if you trace the energetic lines from the upper inner thighs moving in and up to that, like the top of the triangle of the triangle that your legs are making, in and up, maintain that gentle core contraction, pelvic floor contraction as you bend your knee, as you return to warrior two and you breathe. Now, as you're doing this, it's natural to feel when you're holding warrior two that there might be a little release at some point and a little more engagement at some point, but there's always this kind of functioning toned lift from the base. It should help you feel more supported in the pose without working super hard with the more superficial muscles. Okay, straighten the right leg, turn the toes in, and let's turn the left toes out and just do a basic warrior two shape, even be a little bit lazy in it, so we can get some contrast. Straighten the leg, put your hands on your hips, and now start engaging muscle energy, hugging muscle to bone, tracing those energetic lines up the inner thighs into the perineum and upwards. So you have that toned working Mula Bandha, and incorporate that into your next warrior two. Again, there might be moments as you hold the pose where you feel a little drop and you feel a lift again, but it's functioning. It's not just completely lazy and dropped.
Yeah.
Then you can take your straighten the leg, turn the toes in. Now go ahead and just fold forward and release it off. But even still, in this more of this stretchy pose, you could feel that awareness, what we're talking about. Okay, stand up tall. All right, I want to hear from you now. What are you noticing when we do a more active pose like warrior two?
Yeah, I definitely feel better supported when I lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
Me too. I definitely get it now. I'm getting it
Great.
now.
great. And it's all related, but then you'll also be able to isolate this as a specific exercise. And when if you're doing more advanced pranayama, you'd be able to very specifically activate Mula Bandha without all the extra stuff.
Right.
Let's
Yep.
try it in one more. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Now we're gonna try it in one more pose. You have two options. You could do malasana, squatting pose like this. And if that's not accessible for you, put your butt on the floor and put your feet flat like this. Or you could sit up on a pillow or cushion or a block if you have blocks. Okay. And if you're able to, if you're not completely on the floor right now, start standing. And as you descend your body into the squat, try to feel the internal upward lift of the pelvic floor, the inward elevator, even as your butt is getting closer to the ground. And then we're going to hold squat. This is a really nice pose to feel the complete drop of the pelvic floor on inhalation. It's going to be a little harder to engage the glutes and all the surrounding muscles when you engage Mula Bandha. In this pose, it's going to feel more of a subtle internal lift. So just breathe, breathe naturally, but try to maintain some sort of toned lift here at the pelvic floor. Remember, it's like it's like one of those like things that lives in the ocean, anemone, I think it's called, where it expands and contracts. It's like that energy. Doesn't have to be held rigid. All right, stand up tall. Okay, so we're going to do a closing pose. I think that's enough of that for right now. We can always review it again later. Let's lie on the back for a knee down twist. So bring your left knee in, cross it over your body. Reach out the left arm. Untwist. Bump your hips, and we'll go over to the other side. Left leg forward, cross the right knee over your body. Unwind to the middle. Then you can lie down on your back. Palms are facing up for a couple minutes here in Shavasana. You don't need to apply any effort here right now. Just be aware of your whole body breathing, the inhale and the exhale. Try not to be over focused on even on the pelvic floor. Just be in a relaxed Shavasana. Softening across the head, all across the shoulders and the arms and the hands. The pelvis and the legs and the feet. You might notice that the pelvic region is even more receptive to the breath than it was before practice today. Quieting your mind. You can start to wiggle the toes and the fingers. Taking your time as you roll over to your side. And you make your way back to an upright seat. So being more connected to the roots connects us to feelings of security, safety, the basic needs of life fulfilled. One step more connected to those qualities, grounded. You can take your hands together and you can bow your head down. So we'll say namaste and we'll do any final closing questions or thoughts now. So namaste, thank you for practicing today. If anybody has any closing questions or thoughts, you're welcome to share now before we finish.
No, that was good. Thank you.
Good.
Definitely something we can use
Yeah,
to avoid the need to use depends in the future.
yeah, exactly. It's a very
I'm-
real topic.
I'm not sure how many men are in the audience, but I think the women probably appreciated it more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. I always start teaching this to my private clients very, almost right away, especially my prenatal clients. I always teach them how to do this.
Yeah, it was very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So keep working at it. And as we continue our classes, even if I'm not specifically talking about it, you have this awareness of how to engage and feel that internal sense of support from underneath of you in every yoga pose. And that's Mula Bandha.
Terrific.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep,
Have a
Have a
great
great
day,
weekend.
everybody.
you too. Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
Avalon.
Thank you.